Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another now emergency podcast edition of Hawk Blogger Mornings. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find all that we do on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram at Hawk Blogger, as well as the audio versions on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you want to get your audio pods. And if you want ad-free audio, patreon.com/hawkblogger is the place to go. This is the number one Seahawks podcast on the planet for the number one football team on the planet, your Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks. And yes, we are back unexpectedly for what is now a triple pod Wednesday, as it was announced not too long ago that the Paul G. Allen estate has announced that they have commenced a formal sale process for the Seattle Seahawks. This is the exact wording. I will read it for you. The formal sale process of the Seattle Seahawks NFL franchise, consistent with Allen's directive to eventually sell his sports holdings and direct all estate proceeds to philanthropy. The estate has selected investment bank Allen and Company and law firm Latham and Watkins to lead the sale process, which is estimated to continue through the 2026 offseason. NFL owners must then ratify a final purchase agreement. All right. That was shared this morning at 10:05 a.m. Pacific time. And here we are now talking about the implications of this change. I've got a bunch of stuff to go over with you all. And I will just say this. First of all, we are going to... we're going to be very cautious here in chat if we're going to get a bunch of stuff in here about hating Jeff Bezos or Steve Ballmer or political stuff or any of that. I'll turn chat off and we will start banning people. That's not what we're going to do here. So I just want to be really clear. If you want to do that, you could do it somewhere else. We're going to talk about the football aspects of this deal. We can definitely share what we would like to find in an owner and what we're looking for. If we're going to turn this into, I don't like what somebody did about, how they ran Amazon or how they pay employees, you're totally fine to have those opinions. This is not what we're going to do on this show. So I just want to be really, really clear. That's not what we're doing here. All right. That aside, let's get into some of the nitty gritty of what is, something to be paid attention to here. Let's start. There's a bunch of stuff to cover. So where to go? First, I want to start just with some gratitude. I think the Allen family in general has been a godsend. I don't know where we would be as Seahawks fans without Paul Allen. We might not be Seahawks fans without Paul Allen. You'll remember that, well, maybe you won't. Maybe you're too young to remember. But the Bearing family, the terrible, awful people that they are, were going to move the Seahawks to California. And they were going to do it without permission from the NFL. They actually had moving vans to start moving the team down to California until the NFL blocked it. And ultimately, Paul Allen purchased the Seahawks. He saved the Seahawks in Seattle. He put through with a great cost of his own, put through a bill to a ballot initiative that allowed public funding to help replace the Kingdome with a financially viable, what became Lumen Field, and then hired Mike Holmgren, first true Super Bowl level coach and at that time GM in the franchise, who then helped turn around a franchise that had never been to a Super Bowl to one that has now been to more Super Bowls since 2022 when they joined the NFC West and joined the NFC than any other team. They've been to as many Super Bowls as any other team in the NFC since joining the NFC in 2002. Now, Paul Allen got to see the Seahawks raise their first Lombardi trophy, thankfully. He earned that and deserved that. And then Jody Allen took over, and to her credit, and I will add Bert Kolde into that. Bert Kolde, if you don't know, was a good friend of Paul Allen and worked closely with him with the Blazers and with the Seahawks, and has worked closely with Jody Allen since. I see Bert at every road game I've been to in the last 2 years, sitting in the press room at like the press conferences afterwards. He is super tied to what's gone on with this team. And so Bert Kold and Jody Allen, they had a option, knowing that they were going to sell this team. They had the option of being truly passive, like in terms of how they were guiding this franchise. They could have decided, like so many owners do, to keep Pete Carroll, and they'd already signed him to a deal. And instead of having to go out and find a new coach and make a decision on whether you were going to keep your general manager, they could have just kept Pete Carroll around. And I'm telling you, the Seahawks would not have lifted a Lombardi trophy this last year if that was the case. And not only did they just make that decision to pay Pete Carroll to not coach for the Seahawks, they made the decision to keep John Schneider. That was not an obvious decision for a lot of people, but they did. They made the decision to help hire Mike Macdonald. They were part of the interview team. They also made the decision to extend John Schneider before this past season began, which is looking like a pretty darn good decision. They also invested in the organization. They invested in the facilities. The NFLPA and the votes that they do, the grading that they did on NFL franchises that NFL owners felt butthurt about and got it to be stopped with a court order or whatever it was. I haven't followed that part closely enough to describe exactly how that went. Well, the Seahawks had great grades in almost everything. They had a low grade in their training facility or something related to the training room. They renovated it this past offseason, built an entirely new training room that's state of the art. That is what good owners do. They have allowed John Schneider and Mike Macdonald and previously Pete Carroll to run this franchise as the football people thought was best to do, as opposed to meddling in it. The decisions that they did make were good decisions. The decisions, the choices they made about where to be involved and where not to be involved were good decisions. And the Seahawks have now won a second Lombardi trophy because of it. So I think they deserve a lot of praise. And I have to say, there was somebody who responded to my tweet as soon as I sent it out about the sale saying, "Thank goodness, bye-bye Jody Allen." And I'm like, that is awful. If you have negative things to say about the job that Jody Allen and Bert Kold did, the only reason that can be is because you have a problem with women. I mean, honestly, there is nothing that Jody Allen has done as the owner in place, the proxy owner for this team, that deserves anybody to be happy that we're moving on from her. That's an atrocious take. So I'm truly grateful for what she and Bert have brought and wish her the best. And yeah, I think that's a big part of where I kind of fall on the beginning of this. The other thing I will get into before some of the specifics that I think you guys will probably be interested in hearing more about is that Brady Henderson and ESPN that reported this story before the Super Bowl got absolutely lambasted. They were skewered by fans and other folks alike that this was a bad report. It wasn't done well, that it wasn't true, that the way it was worded could mean that this was, they could sell the team 2 years from now and it would still be accurate. Well, they were right. They were right. And people can say the timing was bad, and that, sure, you can say the timing was bad, but guess what? ESPN wasn't the only media outlet that had the story. The Wall Street Journal also had the story. The Washington Post had the story. Someone was going to get to it first, and ESPN happened to be that outlet. So I think people owe Brady Henderson and ESPN some apologies for the amount of heat that they took. And you could say, well, why would they do it then? Somebody was going to do it then. The news was out there. And you can say, it was planted, it was leaked in order to affect the outcome of the Super Bowl. Sure, but that's not the reporter's fault. That can be that Robert Kraft or Jed York or whomever in the ownership community wanted this news out there because they didn't want the Seahawks to win. Fine to hate them for that. Not fine in my book to criticize the reporters for doing good work. So I just wanted to say that out at front as well, because I saw some people in this show who were super critical of Brady and others. And time and again, Brady Henderson has proven that he does not put his name on the byline of a story without verifying the news first. So I give him a ton of credit. I'll also say I was pretty clear on the emergency pod I did that day that the note that the Paul Allen estate released after the story broke was classic PR spin, and nothing in that to me said that the story wasn't true. That is also proven to be accurate. So just like learn from this and think critically in these moments, and maybe avoid being so negatively reactionary to the people that are sharing the news. Shooting the messenger is not going to change the message. Okay. So let's get into some stuff. And I will just, for people that are just joining now, I will say again, if you're going to get in here and turn this into a political conversation, if you're going to get here and like how billionaires are terrible people, and, you know, I don't like Jeff Bezos and I don't like Elon, or I want like whatever, we're not going to do that. We are not going to do that. That's not what we're here for. And if you are here for that, you know, you'll either be put in timeout or, you know, banned. So please, let's focus on what we're trying to get done and keep some of that stuff out of it. I know it's going to be difficult to navigate that, but you know, that's kind of the where I'm going. And I'll share some perspectives on who I think would be an interesting fit for the team. And if anyone's saying that I'm childish, that's pretty much just an automatic ban. Like, it's my channel. I'm going to make the rules. And if you don't like it, you definitely don't have to listen. Like, there's nothing forcing you guys to be in here. And that's just the way I'm choosing to run this channel. So no concern from my perspective if you decide to go elsewhere. If you're going to criticize me or my guests, you can go somewhere else and you won't be allowed here. That's just, I'm going to keep this community as kind, considerate, and friendly as possible. So appreciate that. All right. So let's get into some of the way that these rules work, because it's something we have to get familiar with. A few things first. So there is a 30% rule in the NFL. And what is the 30% rule? The 30% rule is that the principal owner, the controlling owner of an NFL franchise, must hold a minimum of 30% equity in the team. Okay? 30%. That means, let's say that the Seahawks, the estimate is that they might get $8 billion for the Seahawks. If that's true, then it can't just be a bunch of little investors. There must be somebody who's capable of writing a check for at least $2.4 billion in liquid capital. Can't be like based off of, you know, property. Like, it's got to be something that you can access and prove that you've got $2.4 billion just to reach the 30% minimum stake. Okay. That's the minimum stake. There is also a 25-person cap on the amount of people that can be part of an ownership group. So you cannot crowdsource a team. This is, everyone's talked about that it's, you know, the Green Bay Packers, like they're owned by the fans. There's actually a rule. There are no corporate owners. There was a grandfathered exception for Green Bay Packers, public corporations, with the exception of the Green Bay Packers. Public corporations, religious groups, nonprofits cannot own an NFL team. It must be private individuals. And there's some private equity I'll talk about in a second. But again, can't be more than 25 people. So I love the energy around fan-owned Seahawks. That would be cool. First of all, there's just 0% chance that you could crowdsource $8 billion. Not going to happen. The other is that there's literally like rules in place to keep that from being possible. So if you're in the process of trying to do this, if you're contributing, I've seen some people already trying to crowdfund. Those are essentially scams. They might not intend to be at the outset, but if you're giving money in a GoFundMe or something like that, you're basically giving your money away. Do not give your money to those things because it is impossible. It cannot happen. Just going to be really clear about that. Now, the other thing that's interesting and new is that private equity can be part of the ownership. This is something that's new as of 2024, so just a couple of years ago. And part of the reason they allowed this is because the valuations have gotten so big, there just aren't that many people in the world that can, buy a $5 billion or an $8 billion franchise. So they have allowed private equity into the league. I'm personally concerned about this, but this is the reality. So I want everyone else to know what I know. There are some strict guardrails, but there is a 10% cap that can be given to private equity. The other 90% must be traditional owners. There is also a 3% floor. So it has to be between 3 and 10%. If private equity is going to have any of the team, it's got to be within 3 to 10%. So they don't want a lot of micro fractional ownership stakes by private equity. They want them to have a real stake in the team, but they also don't want it to be more than 10%. Now, this is the important part. These private equity investors must strictly be passive. They have zero voting power. They cannot, theoretically, I'm not sure how this actually works, but theoretically, they have zero voting power on influencing what happens in how the team operates, what coaches they hire, how the stadium's managed. They are purely silent financial backers. Now, I personally have some questions about this. I don't know many people that are contributing 10% of 8 billion that truly have no influence over what they're investing in, but that's at least how it's written. Now, this is also interesting. Private equity can own more than one team. There is a 6-team limit that a single private equity fund can hold in NFL franchises. I don't like that at all. I'll be honest. I don't like the fact I already have doubts about private equity being involved at all. And I have doubts about them being strictly passive. But if they are, then having them have ownership in multiple teams makes me even more concerned about how that could potentially influence things over time. But that's just my hangups. I'm just being honest about where I have concerns. The 6-year hold. To prevent quick flipping of an NFL asset, private equity funds must hold on to their investment for a minimum of 6 years. So this is not about trying to quickly turn your investment into something you can flip, resell, and get a lot more for. Okay. There are, I think there are 3 firms. There's actually a few firms that are approved for this. And this may be more information than you guys are interested in, but I'm just sharing what I know. So the NFL did not open its doors to all of Wall Street. They pre-approved a select group that can do private equity. Those are the Arctos Partners, ARCTOS, Ares, ARES Management, 6th Street, spelled out SIXTH. And then there's a consortium group that includes Blackstone, Carlyle, CVC Capital Partners, Dynasty Equity, and Ludis, LUDIS. So the new private equity rule did get used with the Miami Dolphins, and the Buffalo Bills sold minority stake to Ares Management and to Arctos Partners. So it's already started. It's happening, whether I like it or any of us like it or not. Private equity money is coming into the NFL. Now, let's talk about what's a realistic approach? Like, how long is this going to take? What are the last sales that have happened? So if you look at the last 3 teams to be sold, I'm not positive that I've got all these right, but this was what I was able to pull together quickly before I did the show. Last sale in the NFL was the Washington Commanders in 2023. That was led by an ownership group with billionaire Josh Harris, but it also includes Magic Johnson and Mitchell Rales. And the purchase price of that was $6.05 billion. And that's actually at the time was the current record for a North American sports franchise. That sale, from the moment it was put on the market to when it sold and ratified by the NFL, was 8.5 months. Okay. So, 8.5 months from today would be October 31st, 2026. So this, if it was that long, you're talking about into the season before it happens. All right. So 8.5 months, $6 billion. And Josh Harris, his net worth, $12 billion. Okay. To give you an idea. Now, before that, the year before that, the Denver Broncos were bought by the Walton Penner Group. This was led by Walmart heir Rob Walton with a bunch of other folks. It also included folks like Condoleezza Rice and Lewis Hamilton. And that purchase price was $4.65 billion. That process took 6 months. So if we're talking October with 8.5, August, somewhere in that range. So this, again, could definitely happen prior to the next regular season starting. Before that, it was 2018 when the Panthers were bought by David Tepper. He is, and as far as I know, I think he bought it independently. I'm not positive, but I think so. He bought it for $2.275 billion. That was 2018. So we're talking a pretty massive difference. If it's $8 billion now, it's a big difference for an NFL franchise. That process took 7 months. So, that was you're talking about between 6 and 9 months for the last 3 sales to have been completed. So I think there is a decent chance that the Seahawks will be sold and the new owner will be approved prior to the 2026 regular season. Now, it could bleed into it, but that seems like a possibility. So let me get to the next piece I had on here. There's people that are like, are they talking about moving the team? I think that is absolutely crazy to think that the Seahawks would be moved. They just won a Super Bowl. They have one of the best fan bases. They have a massive waiting list for season tickets. They're financially very healthy. So I don't think that you need to concern yourself with the team moving. There are some people that are talking about, well, there are taxes in Washington that might affect people's willingness to purchase the Seahawks because, as a resident in the state, they would be taxed more. There's no reason an owner has to be resident to the state. Jody Allen, I don't know how much time she spent in Washington. I'm not even sure she's a Washington state resident, to be honest. Burt Cold was in California. So it doesn't matter what the Washington state tax situation is. That shouldn't have any implications on that. I think there are going to be people that fearmonger about the team moving. I'm not going to talk about it beyond this show. If someone asks, I'll answer. It's not going to happen. The Seahawks are staying in Seattle. That is not, there's plenty of places to put your anxious energy. That's just not a wise place to put it. That's not going to happen. Um, as far as what I would say about billionaire owners and all that, this is as much as I'll probably get into on it. It is not easy and maybe not possible to make that much money and not have some skeletons in your closet, not have some questionable decisions, not have some questionable ethics. Like, this is going to cause a rift with depending on how it progresses within the fan base. So I'm braced for it. That's part of why I'm being really clear that I don't want this to devolve into people debating the merits and demerits of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or, a dozen other people as humans. Like, I get it. I get it. But um this is the reality. There are only certain few people in the world that have enough money and then also have enough interest in sports to spend $8 billion on a franchise. So, I think that that's a thing to just come to grips with. Like, that's just how the world works. And I don't know that screaming into the void is going to change any of that. In fact, I'm pretty sure it isn't. Um, Now, the things that I think matter most in who owns the team, my list, the primary thing is be somebody who cares about winning more than cares about credit, ego, you know, your own attribution for the success. And what that looks like is understanding you're purchasing a team that just won a Super Bowl. The GM just won Executive of the Year. He was just extended. You've got a coach that is one of the youngest in the NFL who won a Super Bowl in his second year. They've built an amazing culture. They have a young team. This isn't a situation where you need to come in and fix the organization. It's already in really good shape. What a great owner will do is they will see how they can add to what's already working. Give the Seahawks more advantages. The places where I see the biggest opportunity for them to do that is there is no salary cap on coaches. There is no salary cap on scouts or front office personnel. So you could absolutely go in there and say, John Schneider, you want to double your number of scouts to improve your process for finding prospects? Do it. Now show me the results, but do it. Mike McDonald, you want to coach for every single player on the roster, one-on-one coaching? Do it. I will pay for that if that's what you think is the right thing to do. Those are things where you can pay top dollar to keep assistants or to attract assistants. Now, I think it's a delicate balance. As somebody who has led large organizations and paid high salaries to individuals, if you get people whose primary motivation is the money that they're earning, you're not going to get good employees. So I don't think it makes sense to just be known as the team that pays everybody the most. You want to attract people that love football and are really good at their jobs, and then you want to compensate them for being really good at their jobs. It's very different. Other things that you can do: invest in Lumen Field, invest in facilities, invest in South Downtown, invest in building out an even better game day experience around Soto, where I think there's an opportunity to renovate down there. I think there's ways. I think building, if you have experience in data models, tech, analytics, building out a bigger, better analytics department that is able to build predictive modeling for identifying draft prospects, that's able to identify with computer vision and other things. There's a lot of great stuff going on with NFL to be able to identify where there's weaknesses in opponent pass protections, where there are tells or keys in terms of what coverage a team is playing or where a blitz might come from. These are the state of the art in NFL technology. And the Seahawks, Mike McDonald certainly understands that. You need really great tech people to really be at the bleeding edge. And the NFL typically pays really poorly for people on the tech side. and they count on people just wanting to work for an NFL team and thinking that's cool to take less money. Turn that out on its ear. Pay top dollar to get the best technologists in here to build the best modeling in the NFL. That's a massive advantage that you could gain. And it's something that the right owner that has a tech background could potentially bring to bear. These are things that are tangible, that are additive, and are not disruptive to what's already working. So those are the things that personally I'm interested in an owner being able to do. The other thing that I will just share in terms of like who are some possible candidates with really not much value placed on them. But yes, Jeff Bezos is going to be a rumored candidate. He was supposedly interested in the Washington Commanders. He was interested in the Seahawks. Don't know. He's moved away from Seattle. Who knows if he would be interested? Steve Ballmer obviously has relationship with Paul Allen and is an owner of the Clippers. He's worth over 130 billion. He certainly can manage this. It's a question of whether or not he would want to own a second team. He attended the Super Bowl down in California. So he's another candidate. Larry Ellison is an interesting name as well. He's worth over $200 billion. And he was heavily rumored as a potential buyer for the Seahawks back in 2018, right after Paul Allen passed away. So he doesn't have the local ties, but he does have a connection. So I don't know anything about how realistic that is, but he was a rumored candidate back then. So I think it makes sense that he'd be a rumored candidate now. Now, it gets kind of interesting from there. I think this is not meant to be an exhaustive list, but two names to watch, and maybe two names that could partner on this. They don't need to, but could. Mackenzie Scott, who was Jeff Bezos's wife now after they've been split, they've divorced, and Melinda French Gates, who is Bill Gates's former wife. And they have enough money between them individually, actually, to be able to do this. So Mackenzie Scott is estimated to have $28 to $34 billion as net worth. She has got enough liquidity where of her Amazon shares, she's got over 26 billion, at least reported in that. And so she's definitely got enough to just buy the team outright if she wanted, let alone meet the 30% minimum threshold. Melinda French Gates is estimated to be worth between around $30 billion. So they're similar in their net worth. And she has a ton of liquid capital. She got plenty to be a 30% owner. And so she could absolutely be somebody who's part of it. They could be partners in it if they chose to be as well. So I think that's an interesting one, especially because there is some connection to Paul Allen and probably Burt Kold through Bill Gates. Bill Gates himself is another candidate. We'll talk about that in a second. But they are kind of committed to the area. They've been committed to philanthropy. And given how Paul Allen was also committed to philanthropy, I think there's some nice potential for a Mackenzie Scott or Melinda French Gates path here. Don't know if they have any interest, but I think those could be some ones to keep an eye on. Then Bill Gates, he clearly has enough. You know, he's worth over $100 billion. But he is 70 years old. Question about whether he's really interested in taking on ownership of an NFL team, but he is known to be a Seahawks fan and obviously a friend of Paul Allen. So that would be another potential name. Satya Nadella, who's currently the Microsoft CEO, he owns minor stakes in the Seattle Sounders and the Seattle Orcas, which is a cricket team. And so he's shown some interest in sports, but his estimated net worth is $1 billion. So he could not be the majority owner, but maybe he could be a minority partner, and maybe be part of like a local face of an ownership group if there is a group that had a primary owner out of state. So those are a few names that to me are interesting to keep an eye on for this. And I don't know. why people are having reactions to my bringing up names. This is not me necessarily justifying any of these people. This is realistically some of the candidates that are going to be named. You can like it or not like it, but that's just how it's going to work. There is no option for this to be a fan-led team. There is no option for it to be someone who has probably done nothing that you would question over the course of your lifetime or their lifetime. This is how it's going to work. And so I think people are going to have whatever reaction they're going to have. But I'm going to be here to talk about what I think matters, where I think there's opportunity. And as I've said a bunch of times before, if I just need to shut down chat, I will do that. And based off of the last time I did an emergency pod on this topic and then this one, I think that might be what I need to do. I don't know that people can have this conversation and be kind to each other, kind to me, kind to who will be potentially the new owner of the Seahawks. So that's just how I'm going to roll with it. And again, if that means I lose all the audience, I'm okay with that. I'm totally okay with that. What I'm not okay with is people treating each other or treating me poorly. So just keep that in mind. All right. So I'm going to see there are some super chats. I'm going to see if any of these are folks that I want to put on stage. All right. So Don Mata said, saddened that Allen family no longer will run the team. Our success, like you said, is a direct result of Paul Allen and company. Jody did nothing but win during her time. I'm praying new owners learn from the Allens. I think that's great. Moshima says, will Evan buy the team with all the money he's made from his Jason Myers prop bets hitting this season? That's a good question. I will ask him later. K-Jab says, appreciate you explaining the details and inspiring gratitude. This team deserves our support as they have been the ones most impacted. We are still world champions. Go Hawks. Love that. Sammy on Tap says, do you think they will always just take the highest bid, or is there a lot more to say from current ownership about who they will sell to? I don't know. I think there's a lot of evidence that Jody Allen and Burt Cole do care about what happens with this team based off of the decisions that they've made previously. And I think they do care about the area. So as I learn more, I'll share more. But I don't think it's necessarily the highest bidder. I'm not sure what kind of pressure or rules the NFL has on it. Like, there's rules if you sell a house that if you get a bid that's over another bid or above asking price, that you kind of have to take it, right? And so I don't know if there's bylaws that the NFL has that you can turn down a higher offer from somebody. I hope there are not. I hope that Jody Allen and Burt Cole can kind of have some decision-making power in that regard. And who knows like what they'll do in that way. The NFL ownership groups want the price to be the highest possible price because it raises their valuation. Let's try that again. It raises their valuation. That's not necessarily something that Jody Allen or Burt Cole care about because they're not making any money from this. They are selling this as part of the estate, and then they're contributing all the proceeds to charity. So you care because you want a lot of money to go to charity, but they don't personally, financially gain from getting the highest bid. So it'll be interesting to see that interplay as things go on. This is a question from Isul. How would you feel about the Sounders or Kraken ownership groups or parts of both getting in on this? Both have some ties to the Seahawks. Yeah, we talked about Satya, there as well. Let's just be honest. Sounders and Kraken are fractional valuations to the $8 billion we're talking about with the Seahawks. So yeah, I think it's a nice thought, but I wouldn't necessarily assume that. 12 for Life, who's been a member for 12 months, says, thanks for connecting 12s to one another and our team. Well, you're welcome for that. Question here from Skiff Feldspar. Can Jody be part of the ownership group? I believe she can. it's a complicated kind of situation. I don't think she's going to be, but I certainly wouldn't mind if she was. Don Mata says, my favorite is Mackenzie and Melinda combo or one of them outright. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be an interesting one. Michael Mathis says, am I correct remembering that the proceeds will be donated to charity? I feel like that was reported somewhere. Yes, that was not just reported somewhere. That is in the announcement today and has been confirmed multiple times. All right. So that will do it for this episode of this emergency pod of HB Mornings. If you have not already, head over to simplyseattle.com. Use code HawkBlogger15. Get 15% off the best Seahawks and Seattle sports gear you're going to find. Get it at simplyseattle.com. You can also go to our event this Friday at 4 p.m. at Lowlander Brewing. Brady Henderson and Mike Sando are going to be there with me. It's going to be a lot of fun. And so we still have, I think, only 7 tickets left. Only 7 tickets left. You can join us if you go to hawkblogger.com/event. You can get tickets to this. Again, only 7 tickets left. They are going fast. So make sure you go and grab it if you have not already. And if you haven't got a copy of my book, We Did Not Care, the story of the Seahawks 2025 season, you can get it at hawkblogger.com/book. You can also get it if you're in the Puget Sound area. The Costco's are carrying it. Target's carrying it. Barnes & Noble's carrying it. Bunch of places are. Safeway's carrying it. So get a copy of the book. Would love that. And please also, if you have not downloaded the Sleeper app, now is a great time to do that. Use promo code Hawks, get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. All right, everybody, that'll do it. Take care. I'll see you tonight at 5 o'clock for Real Hawk Talk, where we are going to go back over our 2025 predictions. It's going to be fun and funny. See you then.